Hello, my name is Raj Chako. I am a console specialist here at HashiCorp, and today I would like to run you guys through a quick demo of configuring console as a primary on ESXi and a secondary with federation on an AKS cluster. So let me quickly log into my ESXi environment and show you what I have spun up. So I have 3 console servers that are running vanilla Ubuntu. I also have another server that I'll be using for a mesh gateway, and I have 2 application servers, a database and a web server, and I also have a vault server, which I'm not going to be using in this example, but in production examples you want to use vault as a backend for all the security mechanisms. For example, your ACLs, policies, your PKS certificates, etc. But for brevity reason, I'm not going to be using vault in today's example here. So let me quickly show you what I have. So let me just clear everything here. So I have, like I said, I have 3 console clusters, 3 console nodes that have VMs that I've logged into. Console is not running right now. I have the mesh gateways and then web server. I just have a duplicate so I can look at logs and stuff. So I am in the etc console D folder. I also have the service is registered, so I can run it with systemd as a service. So let me show you what's in this folder right now. I have nothing exotic here. I have the console license, enterprise license. I have 3 different files here that I'll show you really quickly. So the server.hcl file has the fact that it's a server and it needs 3 console servers to bootstrap and enable the UI on this. And the console log file is basically showing you what is the log configuration. So right now it's set to info. Alright, now let's look at the main file here. So this is my console configuration here, and by the way, all the other servers have the exact same configuration. I'll show you the gateway config as well. So I have a primary data center which I'll be setting up. It will be called VMW DC1. Here's my enterprise license path, the data directory, the interface that I'll be using to bind the address. Basically, for client access, I have opened it to any interfaces available, and this is kind of a duplicate, this log info, because we already have that configured. And then retry join. These are the names of the 3 servers: console 01, 02, and 03. And I have a DNS server that have linked to these with actual DNS names, and some default configuration regarding performance. And we will create an encryption, gossip encryption key. I have commented it out right now, and once we create it, we'll change it. This, again, as you can imagine, this is part of another installation that I was using previously, and some other configuration basically. And we'll play around with this as we go through the process of setting it up. I have the CA configured here. These files don't exist, as you saw. etc console D, I don't have these files. We will create these. Auto encryption is enabled, so the agents will get the certificates automatically. We don't have to configure agent certs. This element is really for the mesh gateway and the federation piece. So when you set up federation, you have to have this configuration which says enable mesh gateway federation equal to true, gRPC ports, and ACLs. I have right now allowed default policy. I have set up default policy to allow right now, but later on we'll do a deny once we create, once we bootstrap ACL, and then we'll put the agent, build the agent tokens and all that. Alright, so let me show you the file, the console.hcl file on my mesh gateway. It's also very simple. Basically the name of the data center, and this is important. What is a primary data center? Because you also want this piece of information on the secondaries as well, that tells them what is a primary data center. And some basic information that you already saw on the other other screen. Let me see if there is anything of substance that I need to show you here. Nope, this is all common. Okay, so this is the Learn Guide that most people get started with, and we will use this as a foundation. So, as you guys know, Consul has a built-in CA, so let's initialize that CA. And you don't have this command everywhere, just any one server. As you can see, it has created a CA and a key, a private key for that. All right. So obviously it created these two files. Let us examine the CA file itself. So open SSL. This is a 519 cert. Text no out. The file name. No out. File name is console agent dot 0m. Okay. So here, as you can see, by default, when we run that command, it gives us a certificate that is valid for 5 years, or the CA basically is valid for 5 years. Now you can definitely change that. So let's do this. Let's delete this. So it's gone. Now let's create that one more time with some parameters. So let's say days, and we'll put 5 nines. So it does create it, and now let's see what the longevity is. Now it is actually valid for 294 years. So as you can see, there's a lot of flexibility. I mean, you definitely don't want to do this in production, but one of the questions one of my customers asked was, how long can you create cert? And same thing with the individual certs too. So this is the CA's lifetime. You can also create certs that live forever. But recommendation is to use Vault in the back as a backend, and then rotate using some mechanism with Vault. Alright, so now that we have a CA, let's take a look at seeing if we can run. And I want to copy both these to all the other servers too. So at this point we have created the certificate. Now we have to create the server certificate. Now this is where some confusion happens, right? In a federated cluster, what exactly does it really mean? So we will do this. I'll create the DC name. So here I'll create the DC, and I'm going to call it my VMware DC1. That's the name I've given. And then we'll also have some additional parameters. So what I want to do is I want to create some additional SANs. So, and this would be actually all my servers. So console-01.server.vmw-dc1.console, and I'll just copy and paste 2 more times and then I'll edit the server names to 03, and so this is 03, this will be 02. So I'm going to create a certificate that will be valid for these names and for this data center. And yeah, and then let's also add some timing here. So let's do days, and let's see, 999. I don't know, let's put 5 nines, 4 nines, and so it's created that cert. Now, because this certificate already has names for all the other servers, I'm just gonna use the same certificate for all servers. Obviously, you can create individual certs with different names, so the only difference will be people have a different ID. So let's take a look at this right here. So open SSL X 519 text no out in VMware DC1.temp. All right. So so based on the previous CA, it created this certificate, as you can see. So it has a common name that it gave, but the subject alternative names are right here at the bottom. So all these names, it actually by default adds a localhost and localhost IP address, and then here, as you can see, there is a default for server, and then these are the three that I added: console-01.server, console-02.server, console-3.0 server-vmw-dc1. So this is good, and now we will. And again, the expiration. So just want to make sure that I mentioned this. Right now, I removed 19, so instead of making it 200 and 24 years, it just made 47 years for the certificate to last. And this is just an example. You would never ever do that because there was a question regarding how long can a cert be. I'll leave it here. So now that I have these created. Now, if you remember, I already had these three parameters in my console ACL. So let's just examine that. So here's the console agent and the name of the server and the key. So what I'll do now is I'll just copy these two to the rest of the other two servers. So let's do. Now at least I know my certificates are over here. I haven't enabled gossip encryption or ACL bootstrap yet, but let's just start. Let's see if we can start this server up. So console is up, ACL. So I'm in the bootstrap guide. So here's the configuration we already have. Default policy, I have it allowed, and then what we'll do is we'll do a console ACL bootstrap. So let's go to any one of the servers, the console ACL bootstrap. Okay. So it has created, a root token and an accessor ID. So I'll use this root token, and I will, I'll do an export on this. So it goes export console HTTP token equal this. Let's see, console info. Yeah. Now if I do that from here, console, let's do one more thing. We'll deny the policy. Now we'll just turn on the deny policy and see what happens. And by the way, since I've previously logged in, so so right now this is, as you can see, I have the 3-node cluster. There's nothing there. And then from a token standpoint, since we enable Bootstrap, it creates a global management token and an anonymous token. And from a policy standpoint, it creates a global management policy. I mean, that's just basics. That's how you start with the moment you do a ACL bootstrap on console. Okay, so now that we have bootstrapped the ACL system on console, we can edit this, and then say the default policy we can do deny. And then we'll create a token, etc. for it. But I want to show something here. So here our default policy is now we'll have to reload console. So console reload so that it reads the configuration. Now let me see if I can add this server to the mix. So let's see, not server, an agent. So systemctl console, systemctl start console, console, and okay, so here we're starting. Gossip is encrypted here. So there is a configuration mismatch here because obviously there is no gossip encryption. We haven't allowed that yet. So this is not going to work. We'll have to fix that. And so if you look at the nodes, you don't see the node coming up. So let's fix that. Oh, that's right. There you go. This is the reason. I thought I had saved that. Okay, now let's run it. System start. Okay, now it says gossip false. Okay, this should. Now, as you can see, ACL not found is an issue. So this is the error that I want to show. Now, if we had allowed, you would have seen this register itself. So we'll have to create a node token for it to be registered. But that is just something to understand how the ACL token system works. So once you allow it, a node cannot register itself without having a node policy. So we'll create a node policy, etc. And maybe let's look at the guide to do that. So we did the bootstrap, and we exported it so we can work through. And here's a agent token policy. So we can create a token where it says a node can, write whatever the name is, right? Doesn't matter, no prefix, and it can also read any service. So this is a basic node policy that we'll create. So I'll just copy this content, and let's go to call it node policy.xcl, and here's our node policy. So we have a node policy. Now let's use that file and then create the policy. So let's copy, and I'm going to use home. The location of this thing is home user. Instead of node, I called it so node policy.hcl, and we don't have to worry about the name and the description. That's fine. Let's just create this. So here it is. So when you get this ID, it's already created the policy for us. And you can see this in the UI as well. So let's quickly go to the UI and click on policies, and you will see there's an agent token policy that is just created, and with that configuration. Alright, so now that we have the policy, we still don't have a token associated with this policy. So we'll create a token now next. So right here, the next step is create a token. We can also do this from the UI, but CLI is way cooler, so we'll use that through CLI. And so we will use this policy name and then create a token. So here's a token. So we will use this token. So I'm going to copy and paste this somewhere for future use. Okay. Alright, so that's that. And we'll use this as our agent token. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to that console mesh which was giving us an error. So let's go to, and let's go to the token agent and replace this with that new token. console up and running with ACL policies now and encryption for gossip. So let's take a look at this. Alright, cool. Now we will create and enable the mesh gateway service. So let's do that. So for this, you need to expose the external IP of the mesh gateway along with the port, and then you can run envoy pointing to that. So let's so we'll use this command. So basically, it's we're using envoy as a proxy. We're exposing the server. Gateway type is mesh, and we're going to register service. And the internal IP address and the external public IP address and the port number. And we will give it a token because without that it won't work now. So I'm gonna use the bootstrap token here. Okay, alright, so that does it. So now if you go look at services, you will see that there is one service that is registered. So in services now there's a service called VM Gateway, which is the service mesh. Okay, so that's it. Now I think we're pretty much done. Now if you read the document on federation, so here what it says is Kubernetes is secondary, what you will need on the primary. So you need to create a federation secret. This federation secret actually includes a few things. It includes the root CA, the key for the root CA. It also includes a few other things. It needs the gossip encryption key. It also needs, replication token. And then there is also one other component that we need, and the name of the remote data center, right? The primary data center, and also the name of the IP address of the gateway. So those are the other things that we will need. But before that, we will need to create an application token, and so let's create an application policy and create a token based on this policy. So since we are using enterprise, I'm going to use this. So I'm going to go to one of these servers real quick, and I'll do VI user, and I'll call it replication policy, and I'll just paste it over here. Okay, so we have this policy. Now I'm just gonna create this. So right here, this is the kind of the. I just had to change these names here. So the name that we gave was under home APC user, and it said replication policy dot ATL, and the name of the policy, I'll call it replication policy, and that should be it. So they should create a replication policy. Let's take a look at the policy really quickly in the UI. So go to policies, replication policy, and here it is. Now we need to assign a token to it too. So we'll have to generate a token and assign a token. And something like this would work. And just go to this. Policy name is replication policy, and token for replication. It's called ACL replication, and that's it. It should create a new token, and here is the token for replication. I'll copy it, and this is the actual token. So what I'll do is, so we'll create a replication entity here. So agent token, let's call it replication equal do that with all of them. So alrighty. So now that we have a token created, right here, it's actually tagged to this replication token. We will restart the services here. So go. Let's take a look at the status. Service looks healthy. Okay. So I think we are good in terms of the configuration that we need to do on the primary data center. We have console, we have mesh gateway configured. Now we can configure the AKS cluster. So I am gonna record that in a different video.